So we're starting our series called God Space, based off the book called God Space. And last night we talked about the importance of creating God Space and what that is. And God Space is a space, a place where spiritual conversation can take place naturally, right? Where it can flow without the awkward and uncomfortableness of what usually accompanies spiritual conversations or conversations about Christianity or about Jesus. And so we're looking at how do we create God's space, but first, why is that even important? And we looked at Matthew 28:19 through 20, right, which was called the Great Commission. It's the last thing Jesus said before he ascended into heaven. The last command, the last thing that he gave to the disciples. He commissioned them and he said, go and make disciples, right? Let's take a look at our tweaked version, our version that applies a little bit more to us, that hits a little bit more home with us. It says, therefore, as you are going through life, make disciples of all people through genuine commitment to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to keep and to treasure all that I have commanded you dearly. All right, that seems pretty simple enough. And we looked at that, and it's like that is the fundamental purpose, the fundamental passion, the fundamental being of Christianity, of discipleship. If you're going to be a disciple, if you are going to be a Christian that truly follows and does what Jesus would do, this has to be the center of what we do. Remember in Luke 19:10, Jesus describes himself as saying, the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost, to go out and look for, to go out and make disciples of. And so that's what we are called to do. That's what we are commissioned to do. However, a lot of times this verse is taken, especially in modern day Christianity, especially here in America, as more of the Great Dismission of, well, that doesn't really apply to me. That's more for missionaries. Oh, that's more for pastors. Oh, that's other people's thing. But it's not. Jesus didn't say, pastors, go and make disciples of all nations. Or missionaries, go and make, or some of you here, go and make disciples of all nations. No, he said, all of you. He said, go and make disciples of all nations. And we were talking about how sometimes it gets kind of uncomfortable. And a lot of times, even us personally, when we really break it down and we really think about it, we don't follow through with that very much. And I think that it all goes back to the verses leading up to the Great Commission of Matthew 28, verse 16, where disciples come to where Jesus said he was going to meet them. And when he appeared, it says they all worshiped him. But at the end of verse 16, it says, some, though, held back, not sure about risking themselves totally. And I think that's what it comes down to. We're afraid, for whatever reason, to risk ourselves totally. Whether that's that we're afraid of risking our reputation, that we're afraid of being ridiculed, that we're afraid of the awkwardness that comes with talking about Jesus sometimes, that we're afraid of not having all the answers when people ask questions. Or maybe it's not even that we're afraid of something. Maybe it's just that we don't want to give all of ourselves up. We like to be able to hang on to that little tiny bit of ourselves. We like maybe it's a little tiny bit of our sinful nature, or maybe it's just that little tiny bit of just kind of selfishness where we just go, hey, I just want to have some me left to myself. But Jesus calls for all of us, 100% of our commitment to him. And so if we're going to follow Jesus, if we're going to be true disciples of Jesus, that's how we ought to live, and that's where we need to get to. And so the challenge for today is to think about that question. What am I afraid? What am I holding back and not totally giving myself to Jesus? What things do I not want to hang on to of myself? Maybe even write those down and think about those, and then look at them, pray about them, and ask God to help you find ways to let those things go, give those things up to him. If we truly want to be disciples and not just Christians, then that's what we are called, and that's what we must be able to do. All right, have a great day.